Well, it was a quiet day for a change in Jerusalem today. After days of unrest, after Israel installed and then removed those metal detectors at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israel had responded to gunmen firing from inside that mosque site, killing 2 Israeli police officers. Well, since then, 5 Israelis and 4 Palestinians have died in different clashes because of this violence. And all this has prompted more calls to stop the so-called martyr payments by the Palestinian Authority that, from the so-called Martyr Fund, goes to families of terrorists. At the United Nations this week, Israel's ambassador Dannon invited Iran Almag to appear. Iran lost 5 members of his family in a terrorist attack in Israel back in 2003. That was when a Hamas terrorist was dressed as a pregnant woman, killed 21 people in a restaurant in Haifa. Iran told the UN that the Palestinian payments must end.
I think that anyone who believes in the value of human life should act. Therefore, I am calling all the countries represented in this House, help, and if necessary, force the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, to make the right decision and to stop funding of terrorists.
But Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has vowed he will not stop those payments. Joining us now to talk more about this, Ambassador Dannon, who is the former Israeli Deputy Defense Minister and, as we said, Israeli Ambassador to the UN. Ambassador, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
First, let me just start with the unrest recently. The metal detectors have been removed. You have the chairman of the Arab League saying it's Israel that wants a religious war. How do you address those concerns? How do you address those threats? And how do you address the continued incitement that has continued?
Well, it's unfortunate. It's not the first time that radicals are trying to use the Temple Mount to incite against the Jewish people. It happened in 1929, in 1936. It's happening today. Israel is committed to ensure that the Temple Mount is open to everybody and it's safe for everybody, for all worshippers, not only for the Muslims, for Christian, Jews. That is the meaning of freedom of religion. You will not find it anywhere in the Middle East. Only in Israel we have real freedom of religion. And some of the Arab leaders tend to forget that on July 14th, 2 police officers were shot from the back on the Temple Mount. So we need to make sure that we will not see more incidents like that. The Temple Mount is open, and I think that we will see more incitement coming for those leaders. They care only about incitement, not about calming the situation.
Finally, on this subject, do you think the Temple Mount, do you think it can be protected appropriately? And do you think that their concerns can be addressed while at the same time ensuring the security of the Israeli police?
We'll do whatever necessary to protect the people who come on Temple Mount. And by the way, speaking about metal detectors, when you come to the UN, Eric, you have to go through a metal detector. When you go to the Vatican in Rome, even to Mecca, you go through metal detectors. But they don't care about security and safety. They care about instigating. We will make sure that the mountain will be safe and open.
Speaking of what you say is a political point, the payments, we've done several stories on this. I mean, they've continued. The administration has asked them to stop. That has not happened. Do you see a day when that may...
This is outrageous. $300 million a year the Palestinian Authority is paying for the families of convicted terrorists. This is 7% of their budget. Do you know how much they invest on higher education? 1%. So why the US and the European countries are giving money to the PA if they are continuing to support terrorists? That's glorification of terror. It needs to stop, and I hope that the US and other countries will find a way to support the humanitarian need of the Palestinians, but not to support terrorism.
As you know, the PA says, well, that's part of the system. They refuse to stop these payments. Could that lead to a victory, perhaps, by Hamas in the West Bank? Could that undermine the Palestinian Authority control?
I think exactly the opposite. Once they will decide to stop with the glorification of terrorism and to stay on the moral ground and say we do not support terrorists, we educate for peace, for love, then they will be able to govern. While they are playing and they support terrorists, they cannot compete with Hamas, with hatred.
People don't realize America spends about $300 million in funds to the Palestinian Authority, and as the ambassador just said, $300 million or so goes to these so-called martyr payments, which if you're a terrorist or you are convicted, you get the payments, the families get the payments. Taylor Force was a young man, 28 years old, went to Vanderbilt Business School. He had gone to West Point. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he was walking. There's Taylor. He was walking on the boardwalk in Tel Aviv last year when he was stabbed to death by a Palestinian terrorist who was then shot by Israeli police. His the suspect's family getting the money.
Eric, last Friday we experienced another terror attack. 3 people were massacred on a Friday night dinner, and the terrorist was captured. He is receiving from now on $3,000 a month from the PA.
Wait, say that again. The terrorist from the other day.
From last Friday.
From last Friday, when
he was
that
shot.
home.
He was not killed.
Okay.
He's in a hospital now. He will receive from now on until the end of his life $3,000 a month payment.
Critics say this is payment for terror.
It is. It is.
How do you stop it?
I think the pressure should come from the U.S. and other countries, and they should tell the Palestinian Authority, you have to make a choice. Do you want our support, or you want to support terrorism? You cannot do both at the same time.
Have you seen enough progress, do you think, with the legislation that's in Congress now? Named after Taylor Force. It's called the Taylor Force Act, and we've seen some members of Congress and the Senate support it. It's slowly gaining steam, but it hasn't passed yet.
Well, it is an American issue, but morally, we speak about it. We had at the UN the mother of Ezra Schwartz, an American boy from Boston who was killed in a terrorist attack next to Jerusalem. Also, the terrorist who killed him, the family receives funds every month. It's an American issue. It's not an Israeli issue.
Is it possible for the PA or for, let's say, any funds to be diverted away from that? Would the PA then say, okay, we won't use American or U.S. funds, we can use our own money, and that would continue?
I think they should not be able to use a penny to pay terrorists, because what is the message they are giving to the next generation? Go to kill Jews and you will get paid for that. You cannot support an entity that is doing that. They need to stop with that, and they should use the money for other things, and they need the money for other things.
And for those who say, well, it's the Israeli occupation, because that's something else the PA uses to defend these payments, they call them martyr payments. In their view, the people who are killed are martyrs for their cause against Israeli occupation.
Suicide bombers, people who stab people on the streets, are not martyrs. They are killers. They should be in jail, and they should not get paid.
Sadly, it is continuing. The payments are continuing, and it's being addressed in Washington slowly, but not yet. And the president, perhaps we've been told, would sign the legislation. I know you can't comment on U.S. domestic issues exactly, but are you confident? Do you have hope?
I think it will happen because it is a moral issue. It's not about supporting the Palestinians or the Israelis. It's about taking the moral stand, and the U.S. knows where to stand when it comes to moral issues.
Ambassador Dannon of Israel, thank you for
your
time
much
this afternoon on this Sabbath, Saturday.
Thank you.
Of course.